So, I like the name of the book. Don't tell me I can't do it. It sounds like my kid talking to me.
Well-
My youngest daughter talking to me. So tell me, what made you choose that name, and tie that into, is this a key phrase about Jim, or is this perhaps a way an entrepreneur perhaps looks at life?
You know, thinking of the entrepreneur, I think every entrepreneur has their own triggers.
Yes.
Someone has a trigger, and I didn't know until I started writing that that was a trigger of mine. There's a lot of things I've done that sometimes it's only to see if I can, and as soon as someone says, oh, you can't do that, I think, you know what, get out of the way, watch this,
Sure.
don't tell me I
That's
can't
the
do
challenge.
it. And it almost makes it look like, yes, you can do it, and I want to not prove to someone, but show them you can do stuff. You just got to learn how to make the plan, figure out what it is, and apply, you know, whatever it takes to make it happen. But don't tell me I can't do it is one of 20 names that I wanted to put together for this particular book, and it's actually the name of the first chapter. And it came from me sitting on a dock when I was 11 or 12 years old trying to catch a fish.
Yes.
And neighbors said, oh, you can't catch them. How do you think they got that big? And they went through the whole thing, and I thought, you know what, there's got to be a way. And little did I know at the time I was thinking like an entrepreneur. I was consulting with the bait shop owner. I remember bringing a potted plant out on the dock and hiding behind it because I thought if I can see them, they can probably see me.
Sure.
And through the trial and error, trying different things, trying different baits, different hooks, I went to a bait shop, the guy I was talking with, and he was throwing scraps in the water. And I watched a little fish grab a big scrap and take off with it. And a big fish came and took that away from him, and he took off. And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and I said, I got you. And I went home, and I took some bait scraps, and I took a big one, put it in a bait, threw them in the water. Sure enough, a little one grabbed it. Big one took it away from him, and I threw a big, like a 4-pound snapper up on the dock. And of course, the neighbor says, oh, you got lucky, you know.
Yeah.
But I was catching
Yeah.
them consistently, so it wasn't
That
luck.
pushed you even more.
I worked hard for 6 months,
Yeah.
trial and error, making mistakes, you know, going through the ridicule. That's what people
Yeah.
do with their life.
Yeah.
And usually they'll give up when they were so close. Keep trying. There's got to be a way to make it happen.
Yeah.
So my trigger is don't tell me I can't do it.
Yes.
And that's why I wanted to name the book that. Don't tell me I can't do it, because I don't want anyone to tell you you can't do something. If it's doable, you could do it. It's a matter
Sure.
of do you want to, is it worth it? There's a lot of other factors, but
Well,
I
so
can't
many-
do it. It's just wrong.
So many kids get brought up with, you know, it's not right, or you should do it this way.
Right.
So part of that is being able to think outside the box, think creatively, and
Right.
challenge. And
And
I
I'm
love
trying
that
you know.
chapter. I mean, tell me
Yeah.
a little bit more about the other chapters in this book.
Well, there was what I did is I walked through each chapter of my life. That started, I don't remember a whole lot of what I would have learned from as a younger kid, but after that, I walked through building Jimmy's rod shop. I was fascinated with fishing rods, and I used to go to this bait shop and watch the guy through the glass and watch him weave the threads. So I went home and I cut all the guides off one of my dad's fishing rods. And I tried to rewrap it with my sister's, you know, nail polish and household
Yeah.
thread, and I brought it back in and said, Charlie, look what I did. And of course it was a mess, but he said, you did this by watching me through the glass after school in the afternoons?
Yeah.
And he invited me back into a shop and he showed me how to do it right. And then he redid it right and put finish on it. He says, get this back in the house before your dad sees it. You know, I cut his fishing rod up.
Sure.
But I learned how to make fishing rods, and then by 13 or 14, I was his competitor in business. So be careful who you show your tricks to.
Yes.
He didn't care because he was so busy anyway. And then when I ended up leaving the keys, I just gave all my customers to him anyway. So we had a good working relationship. So that was the Jimmy's Rod Shop where I learned how to do something. And I was 13 years old and was in business. And
Wow.
in demand. People wanted me to make them rods.
Wow.
So then the next chapter was I quit school, ran away from home. Had quite a troubled childhood, but one was Get Out of the Way, Rockstar Coming Through or something like that.
Yeah.
And that was when I saw a Bon Jovi video. I was 17 years old, and I saw the girls throwing their clothes on stage, and lights are flashing, hair's flying. I mean, that's all gone. And I said, oh man, I got to do that.
Yeah.
17 years old, I sold everything, took a duffel bag and landed in Sacramento, California, and joined a rock band. I'm
Wow.
going to be Bon Jovi, you know. I woke up from that and realized you don't have any talent. You probably ought to find something else to do.
Sure.
What I was really doing, I was grasping for attention. And that
Right.
was what I saw on that screen. I saw they were getting attention. So now the quickest way to make some money to get back to Florida and figure out what you want to do with your life is go up to Dutch Harbor. So I went up to Dutch Harbor, Alaska, and commercial fished a couple seasons, made a bucket full of money, came back here, went into business. To the next chapter was waxing cars. I was called the Wax Man.
Yeah.
Just living in a hotel, working at a car wash, and then got an idea to take a bucket of soap around the neighborhood and wash people's car on my days off. It turned into waxing a car, that turned into waxing jets and motorhomes. Next thing you
Sure.
know, I'm out Wax Man. Shoulder got tired. I had people asking me about boat stuff. Where can you find this? Where can you get that? So I made a list of things you could find in the boating industry and contacts that I had that led me to saying, hey, I think I could publish a magazine, and it could be all about boating stuff.
Sure.
When I started that, this was interesting. I am not even using email, didn't know what computers were. I'm using a mouse, and I'm watching the cursor do this, and I think that's like really cool. You know,
Yeah.
that's where I was at the time. But I didn't get hung up in the technical side of learning publishing.
Yeah.
I got hung up in the fact this doesn't exist in the community and people want it. I bet I could figure it out. So I created a publication business. And one thing just led to another. Each chapter I wrote about, one of them was called Everything's A-OK. It was a bait shop called A-OK Bait and Tackle. And I learned more about entrepreneurism from that shop than anything I've ever experienced because of the owner. His life revolved around finding the next weakest link and
Okay.
fixing it. If there was a bottleneck at the door, he would figure out why and he would
Fix
find
the
a way to
next
fix it.
weakest link. Okay.
And he would always look around and say, all right, what can I do next? We had an ice issue. A lot of people bought ice. He punched a hole in the ceiling and put an ice machine on the roof. It fell into a bin in the walk-in cooler, and we were getting buckets and selling the buckets. We just sped up our ice production, 200%. Everything we did in that store, he found a way to make it better.
Better.
And I think that's what an entrepreneur is. They
Yeah.
find something and they make it better. I told some kids last week, Steve Jobs didn't invent portable music. He found a way to make it better.
Sure.
And it'll get even
Or
better
convenient.
on.
Yes.
Yes, and better, be convenient, faster, library list. What he really did was put the power in the user's hands. He didn't
Yes.
have that with a cassette tape. Our
Yeah.
power was fast forward and stop, and So I think that's what entrepreneurism is.
Excellent.
Finding a way to make it better,
Yeah.
not so much inventing something.
Yeah.
And then the book stops there, and then the second half is things I learned along the way with things I experienced and what I learned from them.
Sure.
All kinds of just random things.
So, with this book, who would you say would be the target audience? Who would be the best person? When you were writing this book, did you have anybody in mind, or is this book pretty much anybody could get something out of it?
I think it's that. I think it's like a grocery store. There's something for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think it might depend on what part of life you're at the time. If
Yes.
you're younger going through something, you pull certain things out. I've had some retirees read it and say, I didn't think I'd be that interested, but I was really fascinated by this chapter because it hit them somehow. And it made them realize, whether you're a fireman or a student or a teacher or a cop or a doctor or whatever, there's something entrepreneurial in your life where you've got to think creative and troubleshoot and problem solve and understand something. And you'll be a better anything if you can learn more like that entrepreneur's mentality. So I don't know if there's an audience or not. I think if you're looking for something, you're going to find it, and there's something
Sure.
in here for everybody. That's why I like that whole concept of a grocery store. There's something in it for everybody. And
Sure.
I didn't target a specific audience, although I am using it a lot with younger people, hoping they're going to realize, hey, it's not just about 2 + 2 is 4. There's more principles out there, and it maybe give them another avenue of absorbing information.
Now, with all that you've written, all that you've personally experienced, and obviously you're a unique individual, is becoming an entrepreneur possible for everybody? Or is it something that's somewhat innate? I know you've studied people and you work with people, and
Yeah.
of course looking at your own self, but is it somewhat that's already within you? Is it born out of parenting or lack of parenting or whatever, or is it something that anybody could develop?
That's an I don't know question, because there's so many cases out there on such extremes. I mean, look at Ray Kroc. He was 60 when he saw the vision of multiplying
Sure.
McDonald's, and then you got other people that were millionaires at 17 with their own enterprise, and they never saw a job or a
Yeah.
paycheck. I told a group of high school kids just last week, and I think I got in trouble for saying the word ass in a classroom, but it worked okay.
Yeah.
But I said, you weren't born with whatever problem you got, whatever habits you've developed. When you were born, you were upside down, you were naked, there was bright lights, the room was cold, you were pissed off because someone just smacked you in the ass and
Sure.
made you cry to stimulate your nervous system. Everything else you've gotten developed along the way.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's too late for anyone to learn to develop entrepreneurial skills. I think the older someone gets, the tougher it would be, but when things are tougher, sometimes the reward's better.
Sure.
And I think it's tougher because we've gotten into a habit of Americans, or maybe everywhere, of being like cattle, that we all just kind of do what everyone else is doing and we're all going in the same direction. And
Yeah.
as soon as I think of cattle, I think maybe I was there too, but I was one of them that stuck my head up and said, where are we going? Where people are
Yes.
afraid to ask, no, just do what everyone else is doing, be normal. When I stuck my head up in the world, I kind of saw, hey, we're all going to the slaughterhouse. Maybe we should think of a different direction, I
Sure.
mean, don't just do what everyone else is doing. There's probably a better way.
Yeah.
And I think if people want to study the concept of entrepreneurism, whether they just want to think like one and be a better factory worker, or if they want to create an enterprise, I think humans are retrainable.
Yes.
I think the human being, the length of their life, I think you can stop and retrain your thinking at any point. It's a matter of swinging that pendulum the other way. You know, you've always thought like an employee, now it's time to start thinking on the other side of the desk and how things work, and you've just got to retrain how you see things.
Yes. Well, I agree with that 100%. I mean, humans
Mhm.
being retrainable, because obviously we're guided by our beliefs, and that is a major belief that if you were to think the opposite, like it's impossible, I can't change, then
Yeah.
that's you're doomed. But if you
Well,
actually can
yeah.
empower or embrace it's
See,
possible,
I'm in that
that's-
spot too. If I had
Yeah.
to go get a job today, I mean, I was fortunate enough to be able to quit working basically in my 30s. And
Yeah.
people think that's some fantasy. I mean, I still do things that are work related and for business and all.
Sure.
But I'm in that same spot where I couldn't go to work because of how I think.
Yes.
It wouldn't work out. It doesn't fit in the workplace. And the jobs I did have when I was younger, I got the manager so upset because I made him look bad that he didn't like me doing it. And on this, you said opposite. I don't know that this is true. I remembered hearing it about Walt Disney, but it may have been from someone else, that when he was in doubt,
Mm.
he would do the opposite of what anyone else would do. And when
Ah.
he really didn't know for sure, and when he didn't trust his own gut or his own feelings, he would gather his peers and bounce ideas off of them. They didn't know he was using them.
Sure.
And he would gather them around and say, what do you think of this? And if everybody hated it, he would do it.
Who would do it?
And if everyone loved it, he thought, well, maybe it won't work.
Yeah.
And his philosophy was that most people are wrong most of the time.
Yeah.
And the way he could back that is by saying most people are not fully happy. They trick themselves into thinking there. Or they say, oh, I'm doing okay, but your goal was never okay.
Sure.
Most people hit 65, dead, broke, still working, dependent on family or charity. Oh, I'm getting by. Well, you never set
Yeah.
out to get by. I mean,
Sure.
you missed it. And he feels that most people are wrong most of the time. Not
Yeah.
that they're stupid, but they just didn't know how to do it different or do it another way.
Yeah.
So whenever I'm in doubt, I do the opposite, and sometimes I miss, but most of the time it hits pretty good.
Most of
So
the time it hits
opposite's an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah.
The problem there is, what is opposite?
Sure.
Don't go to work? I mean, if I tell you don't punch a police officer in the nose, the opposite is punching him in the nose. I mean, so
Sure.
you gotta have some common sense too of what's opposite and what
Sure.
needs to be done right.
Yeah.
But I think opposite's a great thing to study. What's different than what
Yeah.
other people would do if you want to be an entrepreneur?
Yes.
Because they're creators,
Yes.
they're developers. They reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
When everybody else says the wheel's fine, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna make it a little better.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, everybody wants it, and now everyone's jealous because now they want your wheel. Wheel can always be faster, slicker, smoother, more corrosion resistant. I reinvent wheel.
Great. Well, one thing that you wrote about in the book, and you kind of mentioned it, you mentioned about, I don't know if I could work in today's workplace.
Yeah.
And I resonate with that too. I think a lot of people out there do. You also talk a little bit about millennials in the book,
Mhm.
and I wonder what your thoughts are as far as, you know, the biggest challenge in the workplace today really is culture.
Right.
Really is being able to actually understand how to best empower and embrace from both sides, whether it's the employer or whether it's even the person that's just getting out of school and,
Right.
you know, walking in for his first day on the job. What do you see as the major issue there, and how to best turn that around?
I don't know if the greatest challenge is the culture or the people, because I wonder what it takes to make a business work today.
Sure.
They've got more overheads, more things that if you don't have that, you can't supply this. So I think it's all kind of tied together.
Yeah.
I don't work in a working environment, so I can't say I'm hands-on with it. But one of the things that came to mind as you were asking that is we used to go through 75, 80, 90 years before something would shift in our culture where you would adapt to it.
Sure.
And today we're doing that in 5 to 10 years. We're still working on things that happened 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think the speed of things is something we've never had as a human society. It's happening so fast. We don't know what to plan for because we don't know what's going to exist in 5 years.
Yes.
And the younger people, one of the things I hear them kind of crying about is that they want to get significance out of their workplace.
Yes.
The workplace we've developed is not designed to give them significance. It's designed to give them a paycheck.
Yeah.
Significance is something you do with your life
Sure.
outside of your job.
Sure.
And they want to change that and make the workplace create the significance. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I'd vote if that was a vote to make, but I'm also trying to communicate to them it isn't going to happen tomorrow by 2 o'clock.
Sure.
It's going to take time. You may work your tail off around the clock and only lay that foundation over the course of your life. You're
Yeah.
talking about changing a world and a society of how things are done for hundreds of years, and they want it today.
Yeah.
Which leads me to what I think one of the challenges is today. We're pushing buttons and we want it now.
Yes.
Some things you can't have now,
Yeah.
but you can build a foundation. And I think a lot of people are having a challenge with the whole "I want it now" thing, and if they can't get it now, then they don't want it at all, not realizing this takes time.
Sure.
And I think that's one of the challenges in the workplace is we're not connecting with people together of saying, how are we all on the same team working towards the same thing? Because I wanna see the results right away.
Yeah.
And
Instant
the
gratification.
change in the workplace will happen, but you can't force it. You've gotta develop it and grow it and weigh out the goods and the bads, and you gotta move in that direction before it's gonna happen. Your question, from what I understood, was the changes in the workplace, the challenges in the workplace.
Sure.
I think the challenge is we're not connecting as people. I think we're so tied to digital sources that we're not actually learning to connect with other people and talk and communicate and understand each other. I think we lost that when the digital got invented, and we're just in a lost world trying to figure out, okay, how do we put all this together and make it work?
Jim, this is one question that I was asked when I wrote my book, and I think it's a key question, and I stumbled across it when I had to answer it. So I'm going to ask you this question.
Okay.
What would be the one key takeaway that you would love the reader to be empowered by reading this book?
One thing I would love to hear people start to say, you know what, something in it helped me realize there's a better way to think or do something. Because I think
Nice.
people have gotten so in the habit of this is how I do it. And I watch that and I think, yeah, but it doesn't work. And what I hear back is, yeah, but this is how I do it. It's like, well, wait a second, but it doesn't work. And I don't think they're stupid. I think they just don't realize there's different ways to do things. And if you can break those habits and figure out what they are, then you can realize, hey, wait a second, look, I'm doing.
So Jim, I know you get up early. You've talked about getting up
Yeah,
early.
we trade emails at 2 or 3 in the morning
I know.
sometimes.
So tell me a little bit more about Jim's life. Do you have a specific routine that you follow? Is there a secret to your sequence of your day?
There is no routine. The
Okay.
routine is that there is no routine. I don't have a working hour schedule or anything.
Yeah.
I'm on kind of a monthly schedule. I know it's around the 15th, around the 1st of the month for work responsibilities. But, if I don't have any projects going on, I sleep like a baby, till sunrise or whatever.
Nice.
If I've got a project going on and I'm thinking and I'll get up at 2 in the morning and I've got it on my head, I'll get up and I just can't think I can't sleep. I operate on maybe 5 hours, really good. If now I'm pushing 3 to 4 because I'm working on something and it's starting to get to where I'm not sleeping and that makes me not think. I don't think people need as much sleep as they think they do.
Sure.
I think they trick themselves in, if I don't get 8 hours, I'm just not happy. I think they've made themselves believe that.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want people to not sleep anymore if they feel like they need that rest or if they're getting cranky and it causes more problems in their life. But I don't feel like I need to be sleeping. I just, I get enough body rest and I'm done. If I'm really tired, I can take a nap in the afternoon. It's
Sure.
20 minutes and I'm refreshed for the rest of the day. There's no pattern. There
No
is
pattern.
no pattern whatsoever. And I mean, it just depends on what's going on at that time in my life. When I was putting the book together, I created a pattern because I had a goal and I said it was part of the plan.
Makes sense.
I don't think people make plans for stuff. Oh, I'd like to have
Sure.
that. They never formulate a plan for it. When I wanted the book to be done, I said, okay, if you can do this many words per day, this many days,
Yeah.
this many hours, whatever, and I created a plan, and every morning I said, all right, you're gonna break your routine and not do what you normally do. Every morning from like 5:30 to 7, you're gonna write.
Yeah.
And it works for me, because I'm wide awake at least 4. And
Yes.
at 4, I'm up and I'm energized and I'm, exercising or do whatever it is that I do. That's where I'm motivated. Come 1 or 2 in the afternoon, I start losing it.
Yes.
So that's my day. But I set a plan where now you're gonna get in this routine, and every morning you're gonna do this, and if, of course something pops up once in a while, you've gotta go somewhere, you're out of town or something. But I stuck to that routine solid, and I realized the word count's following what I wanted it to do.
Sure.
And so now I'm realizing I set a date on it. I don't believe in a goal unless you put a date on it. If it isn't dated, it's a
Yes.
wish. It's a
Yeah.
desire, a wish, a fantasy. It's a goal when you have a date on it. And I set the date, and I was ahead of schedule. Gives you a little more time for editing and stuff like that. But if I just said, I think I'll start on it next week or something, that's what people do, and then it never gets done.
Sure.
And then you gotta set that routine. So I make routines when I need one for something.
Make routines when you need
That's,
it.
that's,
Okay.
I think that's what I was trying to think about when you asked the question is, I don't have one, but yet I'll create one when I need it for something.
Sure, because inspiration can come at any time. Like
Yeah,
you said,
about
early in the morning,
every
whenever.
10 minutes,
There's the project, and there's the plan, and there's the goal, and there's the
Right.
deadline. And
Mhm.
that's the routine.
Right.
That makes a lot
You
of
make
sense.
a routine to fit the project.
Yes.
You don't try to get the project to fit into your routine. You've got to alter that.
Yes.
I know people that are retired that are members of a club, and they make their life revolve around the club, and then it gets to where it's almost a problem.
Yeah.
That's got to revolve around your life. I think routines work the same way. You need to figure out, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and I've got a goal, and I want to write a book, or build this, or do that, or get a license for something, a flying license or something. And I think you need to create your routine to fit that.
Fit that.
If you can learn how to change your routine, you've got a real thing going, because
Yeah.
most people can't. Most
Yeah.
people are creatures of habit, and they can't change what
Can't
they
change
do.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think creating your own routine as you go for what it needs at the time.
Yes, the
I think that's a
priorities.
big
So
deal.
you've used
Yeah.
the word bucket list before.
Yeah.
Do you have a specific bucket list
You
yourself?
know, it's just on the way here, someone said something about a bucket list
Yeah.
that I was riding with, and I said, yeah, put my ashes in a bucket and just dump them somewhere. You know, that's my bucket list.
That's it.
You know, I just want to kind of go whatever I can leave for anybody else. But no, you're right. I do have a bucket list, and I take it seriously. I've got a bucket list from way back of things that would just never happen that I still look at once in a while.
Yeah.
But you don't know what's going to happen in your lifetime. You know, when
Sure.
you're younger, you think of different things. Recently, I put on the bucket list that I want to have a castle.
Oh, neat.
And when I say castle, I don't mean like in Europe. What I want is I want a house in northern Georgia that looks like a castle, but it's a modern home on the inside. And have
Yes.
it on the lake in Georgia.
Nice.
I just think that'd be pretty cool to have, all made out of stone and have it look like
Yeah.
it, maybe with a drawbridge, maybe not.
Yeah.
But I just think having a castle would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Not a big monstrous thing, it's something on the bucket list. Being awarded by the president, whoever the president is at the time when this happens, getting some kind of a national award for doing something that you actually get a medal by the president. There's hundreds of those go on, you know, a year.
Yes.
We just don't see them in the media.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be quite an achievement to say I did something so worthy that I got recognized by the president of the United States, whoever that, you know, may be at the time.
Yeah.
There's some material things on it, you know, a sports car, this and that.
Sure.
You know, everybody, you know, I like toys too. I just don't want it to be a priority.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of things on a bucket list that I just look at, and most of it revolves around creating something really significant that's worthy to, you know, to the world, to other people.
Sure.
You know, when people talk about money, I try to touch on this with kids, but sometimes they don't quite get it. Adults
Sure.
would understand it better. I think money is a byproduct of what you do with your life versus a goal. I think if you do something massively significant and worthy, and you know you alter the course of something, money seems to be a byproduct.
Yes.
If you came up with artwork that was amazing, you can make money putting it on mouse pads.
Yeah.
You know, the money's a byproduct. I think people lose money because they're so focused on the money that they're not focused on value.
Sure.
And the company I built in my 30s that I'm still drawing money from that doesn't need me anymore, the only thing I focused on was value.
Value.
How can I make this so valuable to people when everyone else was saying, no, you gotta sell this and sell that? I said, no, then it has no value.
Yeah.
You're pulling the value out to make a sale. Yes, you make money doing that, but tomorrow you gotta make money again, and it never stops. If you create value, now they're coming to you and saying, I want one. And you're like, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, I'm kinda on vacation right now.
Sure.
And people aren't focusing on value.
Yeah.
And I see this in a lot of businesses. I see it in lawn care services, pool companies, manufacturing. The value seems to be pulled out where they're so focused on just trying to move them or sell them or do something. And I think it goes back to what we started with in this talk, was about how we're moving so fast, we don't realize what's happening.
Sure.
And people that are just selling and selling and selling, they don't realize tomorrow you're gonna have to sell again. And if you didn't
Yes.
think that way, you could have changed that 10 years ago, but 10 years from now, you're gonna be selling again and nothing will change.
Yes.
How do you stop that and say, wait a second, I don't like where I'm gonna be in 10 years because I'm not doing anything to prevent from being there in 10 years, and there's gotta be something in there you can do different, and I think value is one of the big things that's
So
missing.
you mentioned
from
the
a lot.
third draft. Tell
Yeah.
me a little bit more. What is the third draft?
Well, there was a kid in a class that pulled me aside and he says, how do you think of something new? I'm trying to think of a name for this thing I'm gonna make.
Yeah.
And I want a new name. He says, can you give me any tips on how to come up with a new creative name? And I did. I told him, he was maybe too young for this, but adults will definitely get it. He did though too. But when you walk into a room and say, why did I come in here? It's not about has it ever happened, it's about how many times has it happened today,
Sure.
you know?
Sure.
And when I did some homework on that, I found out that there's science pointing towards when you walk into a new environment, it reboots your brain and you're thinking of new things and you forget why you went in the room.
Yes.
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
UC Davis in California has a documentary series about things like that, and that was where I started watching videos that they made about things that you know, people do this, who cares, but I
Yeah.
got something out of it. And I told the kid, go to a new environment. Take
Yeah.
a walk down a road you've never been down before.
Yeah.
You know, do something you've never done. I mean, do anything, just make it up, do something you've never done, go in a new place, walk, ride your bike, whatever, and something will hit you. You gotta have a new environment to trigger new thoughts.
Yeah.
I talked with a guy in a company about this that complained about, oh yeah, we used to gather the employees and brainstorm, it never went anywhere. He took the same staff on the same Tuesday, at the same time, in the same room,
Yeah.
same walls, same paint, same smell, same clothes, sitting next to your same coworker that you're friends with, nothing changed. You're taking same and expecting different to pop out the bottom. I mean,
Sure.
it just doesn't work that
Yeah.
way. You gotta do something different to stimulate something different.
Yeah.
So creating, sorry, I drifted there and forgot the question.
No, but that was so good because that's another topic
Okay,
that I had to this morning when I was talking about the creating different environments in
Mhm.
workplaces. Because you hit on a key point, we go into the same place every day, or
Right.
employees go into the same place
same
every day.
road, same car,
We're
same
stuck in
people.
the same pattern.
Right, it
And
makes your body absorb the same.
we, in order to stimulate the thought process of being different, thinking different, doing
Mhm.
different, quite often you have to mess that up a little bit.
Yeah,
Change
throw
that.
yourself off track. You know, when I used to fish a lot, we used to go to these offshore fishing spots, and I would always veer over a couple miles and come at it from another direction, because as we're covering that new ground, we're seeing different bleeps on the screen, and that's how we found new fishing spots.
Sure.
If you keep taking the same route, you're never gonna discover new places.
Yeah.
And that's, I try to tell people, experiences are gonna
Challenge
teach you
yourself
things.
to do something different.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's
And,
that's
ma-
that's a
and
key thing.
simple, when people say, oh, I
Yeah.
don't know how to be creative, practice being creative and you'll get better. With this, you can practice taking a different road to work. Practice writing the cursive or print,
Yeah.
practice different things. You'll see how hard it is at first, but you're starting
Well,
to
your book
teach
is about
yourself.
thinking differently. So
Well, that's
thinking
different.
differently, acting differently, driving to work differently. And I think if you ask most people, when they've had something significant happen in their life, if they were to reflect backwards,
Mhm.
you know, whether it was when they met their spouse or when they met a key individual,
Yeah.
or there was an opportunity that they came across, and you ask them, were you doing something different in that moment? And probably
Yes.
they were.
Most
They
likely.
got out of their routine, and that's,
Maybe they didn't notice it or see it, but I'll bet you it's
Yeah.
there.
yeah,
And interesting to bring that up, I was 40 years old and had never dated anyone that I would ever want to have a serious relationship with.
Sure.
I was always, I always was attracted to women with a lot of problems or issues, we call it. And I think it's because I was so afraid
yeah,
to be close to somebody that I just wouldn't let them get within arm's reach. And it was with guys too. I kept friends at a distance. I didn't want to
Sure.
be real close to anybody, and I was afraid of not commitment, but I was afraid of letting someone in.
yeah,
And it was from childhood and from things I went through and, running away and all this stuff I went through. I lost my mom to cancer. I lost my sister to cancer. I lost my mom to suicide. I had to
Oh,
get them
boy.
across. But I was afraid of loss.
sure,
When I met Robin, I don't know what happened, but something triggered where what I did different was I allowed her to get close, and I took that chance. If I didn't do something different, I'd be miserable, because she's the one most wonderful thing that's ever happened to me.
yeah,
She's helped me open up and do things. She encourages me to write and work with the kids, and she loves seeing it. And she always wants to hear about my day. What'd you do today? I tell her,
Sure.
she's like, you did what? And it's like, oh yeah, it's just no big deal. But to her, it's like big stuff. And she's the love of my life. I don't know, I would just be lost without her. She moves me.
yeah,
If I didn't do something different and be willing to try something that I was afraid to do or didn't want to do, I'd still be sitting in the same spot.
yes.
Maybe good at business, making money, but I would have had that fear in me for the rest of my life. And if you don't beat your fear, it's gonna beat you.
Yeah,
One of you's are gonna win.
yeah,
Fear isn't something you can put under a rug and hope it goes away. You look under the rug a year later, it's still there.
yes,
If anything, it grows and festers and turns into mold. It's never gonna stop. You gotta beat it.
yeah,
I got a real quick, interesting story about fear. This girl came to a class that I was hosting, and she sat in the back of the room, real quiet, took a lot of notes. I love people that write.
Yeah.
If you don't write it, you don't remember anything. Your retention's so much greater when you write it. And she pulled me aside one night, and she says, this is really cool. I'm only 16, I'm taking psych courses, and I'm doing college, this and that. She says, and I want to come to every one of these. It was every Wednesday evening. And she says, but is it okay with you if I just sit in the back and just take notes? And I said, yeah, why do you ask? And she says, well, I wrote about her. It's called Nicole, the chapter Nicole.
Yeah, I read that chapter,
And-
yes.
And so then I can refresh your memory on how this happened though, but I didn't write all of it.
Yeah.
It was real emotional when she was doing this. I could see her face. I could tell that there was something else going on there.
Yeah,
Something scared her. And she was talking about how I noticed you called a couple of people up to talk in front of the group. would you mind if I never did that? I don't like to do that. I just want to sit in the back and take notes,
Sure.
sort of thing. And I felt like she was asking me for help.
Yeah,
And maybe she was doing it and didn't realize it.
sure.
And I said, absolutely, except for next week. She's like, huh? It just dropped. And I said, I want you to come up here.
Did she come back?
Well, I said, I want you to come up here and give me 30 seconds. The whole group, 30, 40,
Yeah.
50 people. And any topic you want. The more
Yeah.
you know the topic, the easier this will be. Just
Sure.
blurb for 30 seconds of anything you want, and then go
Yeah.
back to your seat, and I promise I will never address you again in this class.
Yeah,
And she kind of like, no, I'm not going to do that. But I got her to where she said, okay, I'll do that. But I didn't think she would.
yeah.
I thought I pushed her just a little too far. She calls me a couple of days later, and she says, all right, I'm in. But she says, and I got a great topic, you're gonna love it. And she says, but 30 seconds really flies, can I have a minute? And I said, yes, I got her.
Nice.
Because I was afraid I lost her.
Sure.
And then she would have had that fear forever. She came up and she did a 4-minute presentation.
Awesome.
And she was scared, the tone of her voice, she was trembling, and you could see her shaking.
Yeah.
But she presented.
Yes.
She didn't stand there and talk. She
Yes.
presented, and she
Presented.
used her arms, and she talked to the people about how she didn't like the idea that a kid can get a 60% on a grade and be allowed to go to the next level, and the system says 96% success ratio in our classes.
Yeah.
She says, that's not success. How do you know where they're gonna be in 20 years if all they were taught was how to get by?
Sure.
And I'm thinking, man, I'm out there writing notes, you know?
Yeah,
This is good stuff.
Yeah.
And then, so now she's the first one with her hand up. And I asked her to do another thing. I said, write your eulogy. She didn't quite know what it
Interesting.
meant, but she
Yeah.
went home. I told her, give it your parents, they'll understand. Write your eulogy, and you can read it off your phone. You don't have to present this one, just read
Yeah.
it. She comes up and she reads this eulogy the next week. And it's about how this lady died at 92 in a warm bed, traveled the world, helped kids, did this, wrote a couple of books, and became, sorry, this is real emotional for me. She became an in-demand public speaker because of a fear she broke at the age of 16.
Nice.
So this goes on to me talking about how you gotta find out what scares you.
Sure.
What scares you and beat it. I didn't ask her to beat it, I asked her to face it.
Sure.
I said, I want you to taste it, I want you to feel it, because in your life you're gonna be scared of things, and I don't want you to just be cold and run away.
Yes.
It causes people to do horrible things if they're afraid.
Yeah.
Don't let fears beat you. So I didn't ask her to beat it, I just asked her to take it on. She beat it and brought in some more, you know?
Yes.
What else you got?
Yeah.
And I was so proud of her. And now she's 17, so she can't get into legal contracts in America, but when she turns 18, I'm gonna put her on the board of my company.
Nice.
Yeah, by far. She deserves it.
Nice.
I mean, she's my inspiration for whatever you're afraid of.
Yeah.
Find it. If you
Yes.
don't know what you're afraid of, talk with people, get them to ask questions. Someone's gonna push a button and say,
Yeah.
there it is,
Yeah.
and beat it.
Yeah.
And all you do then is go find the next one, you know?
Yeah.
And the next one will be easier. And then all of a sudden, as soon as something scares you, poof, you're right on it.
Sure.
And you live a life of someone that's not, it's not that you're not afraid, it's that you know how to handle it. Because life is gonna throw things at you that is gonna scare you.
Sure.
Lost a job, you know, a house fire, you lost everything. Something's gonna happen that scares you. And if you don't know how to deal with it, what do?
Yes.
People are doing some crazy stuff out there, and I gotta wonder, is it because they never learned how to deal with things?
Yes.
When my mom committed suicide, I had a paper to publish. I published a magazine at the time, and it was 3 days after that happened. I had to still go to work. I mean, you gotta
Yeah.
learn how to deal with an emotional crisis under pressure. It probably wasn't my best work, but I made it happen.
Yeah.
Today, they're closing colleges because they don't like the president that got elected.
Yeah.
What's the message? I haven't liked politics for 20 years, Ron.
Yeah.
I still gotta go to work, you know?
Sure.
But what's the message that's being passed on? If you don't like something, just quit.
Yeah.
I can't deal with that. I mean,
Yeah.
where's that gonna be in 20 years, like what she said? You're learning how to
If you're
just
not
get
happy
by.
with it, give up.
Well, that's
Yeah,
kind of like, that's the
that's-
subliminal
yeah.
message that got communicated. And there's
Yeah.
probably some goods and bads in there, because the kids are also learning to protest something they don't agree with or don't like.
Yeah.
So there's goods and bads in it, but you still gotta go to work.
So Jim, I've been seeing the name Third Draft in different places online and stuff. Tell me, what is the Third Draft?
You know, we talked about this earlier, where I drifted off to talking about the kid that was asking me, how do you get a fresh idea?
Yes.
And I was watching a TV series where there was somebody that had to do a talk.
Yes.
And they turned over, talked to their speechwriter and said, I need a draft for this, and I need it now. And he says, okay, I'll get right to the second draft. And she says, no, I need the third draft, and I need it now. Because it was like a crisis going on, and they had
Yeah.
to present something. And I thought, the third draft, what a phrase for something, because I converted it back to life, thinking the first draft would be like scratch notes on a napkin. And
Yeah.
the second draft is something you'd write down and you'd read.
Yes.
but it wasn't all that great.
Yeah.
And most people just get by, survive, I'm doing okay, they got their job, they got this, and they go to work every day, and they're just going through. That's the second draft. So I thought the third draft is when you figure out what scares you and you beat it. Figure out what you're not good at that would help you if you learn to get better at it. That's when you fine tune it. And in writing, it would be taking the word I and turning it to we, because it means something different.
Mm-hmm.
Taking the wording of it and make sure it's not too long, not too short. The second draft is what you read, but the third one needs to be what they heard.
Yes.
And that's different. You've done a lot of public talks.
Yeah.
You're a teacher of how to publicly talk.
Yeah.
And you got to know that when people talk about things, the audience might not have heard what they were saying. They think they did because in their head that's what they were saying, but that's not what got heard.
Sure.
And I try to relate that back to people saying, if you create a third draft in your own personal life, it means that you've really, worked on each little facet that can make you as good as you can get. Move on to the next one and fine tune these things. You don't have to be spectacular at every one of them, but find out what you're not good at and just quit doing what you're comfortable with and find out what you're not good at to make that one a little better before you go back to what's comfortable.
Sure.
So the third draft is more about, it's a name that I didn't want to talk about till more recently because I got a trademark on it. I had to make sure all that was legal and I don't know how to do that stuff. Someone else had to say, okay, you got a green light, and that's been approved now through the government and all. But the third draft is going to be the name of the class that I want to put together.
Nice.
And the third draft to be a class you take, and what it's doing is fine-tuning your skills. Find out what scares you.
Yeah.
Everybody does an emotional talk that's gonna make them cry.
Yeah.
And I want you to learn how to deal with emotion while you have to stand in front of a group of strangers.
Sure.
Because that's something you can use to, learn how to fight your fears and fight things that are inside of you. Get that out so you can go out into the real world.
Yeah.
And third draft is more, I think the slogan is gonna be something like I said a minute ago, the second draft is what you read, but the third one's what they heard, or something like that.
Yeah.
Because I want people to realize most lives are a second draft.
Mm.
Don't let your life be a second draft. Work harder at whatever you need to do to improve and make that third draft out of your own personal life.
Fine tune it. Yes.
And dig up those old dreams you had when you were a kid. What happened to them? What happened in society that sucked them out of you?
Sure.
Where you don't think you can do it anymore. If you work on that third draft, you'll become the person that can do that again, because there is time, there is ability, there is things that you have that you can make that work. Other
Nice.
people did it, you can too.
Nice.
Find a way. That's what
One
the
very
entrepreneur-
important question is, how did you, there's a lot of stuff that went on in your life. I don't remember my childhood. There's time
Yeah.
blocks that are just completely missing. How did you remember everything to the point where you could actually, write it and then find a lesson in it?
I didn't remember it.
You
And
did.
I had a stumbling block with that, and what I did was, I'm friends with a family counselor through a church, and I asked him, I said, when you have a patient, I don't wanna know any secret stuff, but when you've got a patient, client you're working with, I don't know if it's a patient or a client, how do you get them to trigger thoughts? from
Sure.
when they- everyone says, oh, lay on the couch and tell me about your childhood, but how do you get them to remember that stuff? And he said, you're asking me trade secrets here, are you about to start a practice behind my back? We were kidding. And he says, emotion is the way you remember it.
Sure.
And I never thought of that, so I asked him to elaborate, and he says, if you think of the feeling you had at that time in your life, you'll remember details like nothing you ever
Yes.
imagined. And I said, so he was giving me examples, he says, pick an age, and I said 10, he says, where were you living? I said, Clearwater, Florida. What'd your dad do? What'd your mom do? Where'd you go to school? Can you imagine anything that was scary at that time? What movie was out? I'm thinking, all right, Jaws. And I'm answering, and I'm starting to remember, oh yeah, this guy lived across, oh yeah, I got in the fight on the basketball court. Oh no, I remember they had to drain the pool because of something. I remembered so much stuff.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I started talking about it, I started forgetting. And he said, stop right there. What did you feel like when you saw this, when you did that?
Yeah.
And I started feeling it again, which is the emotion, and all of a sudden the memory started coming back. Oh yeah, that was across the street.
Yes.
I caught that big bass and everybody freaked out.
Yeah.
I remembered this stuff when I was 10.
Yeah.
And he said, as soon as you start slipping, go back to the memory, or the feeling. What did you feel like at that time? And he said, the emotion is what will stimulate your memory. And that's what he does with his patients and clients, is he gets them to think about that emotion of whatever they were at the time, and that's what stimulates what happened. Now he has something to work with, because now he's got all their things on the table.
Yes.
As I was writing, I was feeling what I wrote, because I'm taking a trip down memory lane.
Yeah.
I remembered the bait shop, and the guy punched a hole in the ceiling, and this and that, and I remembered I can remember it now thinking about it, because I could feel it.
Sure.
You feel your childhood.
Yeah.
As I go back, I can remember I was 5 years old, and when we heard a fire truck in New York, left there when I was 5 and came to Florida, when I heard a fire truck, I remember yelling for my mom.
Mm.
Because that meant Dad was gonna go by and he was on the back of the truck waving. It
Ah,
might have been him, maybe it wasn't, but when a fire truck sounded, I would wanna, Mom, let's go out and look for Dad.
sure.
I was 5 years old. I can remember that now because I thought about how I felt. I was excited.
The
That was
feeling,
the
the
feeling.
emotion behind it,
The
yeah.
feeling was excitement. And I was talking to this guy about that, and he says, "What else happened when you were 5?" And I thought, "Oh man, I remember going down the road, and there was a big pothole I was afraid of." And he says, "You remember that when you were 5?" And I said, "Yeah, because it was scary.
Yeah.
That pothole was scary. I didn't want to hit it with my bicycle. One day I did. And I got a stitch in my lip because I could split my lip open and it was gravel in my lip." And he says, "And you were 5 and you remember that?" I said, "Yeah, I do." It was,
Yeah.
three-wheeler, boom, I crashed. You remember it when you think of the
On the
emotion.
subject of struggles, we know people struggle. Do you have any daily struggles?
Of course.
Yeah.
I have a lot of confidence issues. I ran away from home when I was 13 years old. I mean, my dad basically let me go. He kind of abandoned me.
Oh, wow.
Lost my mom to suicide just recently, not recently days, but years ago. And all these things have affected me, whether I want to believe it or not, I want to face it or not. I've had things happen, fears and my own challenges.
Mm.
And I think they've benefited more than more than they hurt me because of how I was able to turn them around and use them for,
Sure.
to make things happen. But I struggle with things, but I don't know it till it happens.
Yes.
So I don't really know what they are.
Yeah.
When I can't get a result that I'm looking for, I think, all right, what's causing me to not get this result? I'm doing what I thought I was supposed to do. That means I'm struggling with something.
Yeah.
And I think people can identify their own struggles better if they look at the results and say, I'm doing this and I'm not getting this. What's in between there that's stopping me? That's going to be one of your struggles. And I've talked a lot about a domino.
Mhm.
If you can find out which domino that is in your life, that if I just push this one over, it's not that everything else will fall down, but now you got that one out of the way.
Sure.
And I do that with my list of stuff I got to do.
Yeah.
I look at it and just like everyone else talks about, that's the problem with lists. You make it and say, I'll do it tomorrow, and the list just grows and nothing gets
Yeah.
done. If you go through that list and say, which one is stopping me? Where's my struggle? I don't want to do this one and I don't want to do this one. And I've been putting it off just like taxes or something. If you take on them first, the rest of it ain't so bad.
Yeah.
You move 2 out of a list of 30, the other 28 ain't nothing.
Yeah.
You find out what that is, that's your struggle. You're struggling with these, so get them out of the way.
Yeah.
Finding your struggles, I think, is the challenge.
Sure.
Of what most people go through. They don't realize what it is that they're struggling with. They don't realize why they didn't get a pay raise. They don't realize why they can't
Finding
get
and
along with that
identifying it,
person.
yeah.
Identifying what the struggle is where probably the work needs to get into. What is it that's causing this?
Yeah.
Then you'll find out what the struggle is. And I think people avoid it.
Mm.
I think people don't want to deal with
They
it.
don't wanna face
when,
it.
when I find it, I'm not going to want to face it. It's going to be like a monster, and-
Sure.
But that's the only way you're going to get ahead.
Yeah.
You've got to find out what your struggles are. I have struggles on a regular basis, but I don't know what they are till it happens, till it affects me.
Sure.
And I'll pull it apart and say, okay, what stopped me from doing this?
Yeah.
Sometimes I just didn't feel like it.
Yeah.
And I can walk away with that. I just didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Other times, no, I did want to do it, but something stopped me. What was it? I had a
Mhm.
struggle with something, but identifying it can be a challenge sometimes.
Mm.
But I like identifying it. Like riding a bike, you're going to get better as you go, so don't let
Sure.
it scare you. Sometimes we look at the whole mountain and we don't realize it's a few steps a day.
Yeah.
My wife climbed Kilimanjaro. She didn't do it all in one shot and step. I mean, it takes it's a
Preparation,
routine.
training,
She trained for
yeah.
a year just to fly there and do it, and then the whole trip was 10 days up.
When you live in
And-
Florida, you don't have many mountains to train on.
Yeah, our only mountains we made ourselves, where I'm at anyway. Yeah, but on the concept of personal struggles, I think mine's within myself.
Sure.
I haven't found anything yet that could be done by someone that I couldn't do.
Sure.
Because I understand the process of first set a
Mhm.
goal, realize what it is, come back here, make a plan, create a list. What are your assets? I know Ron's got a contact in politics. You put
Yeah.
these things. You can create a plan to do anything.
Yeah.
But your struggles are inside of you, and I don't think people realize what they are.
Yeah.
And it's probably something you can fix if you knew what it was.
If you know what it was.
Yeah.
So you seem to find time for stuff. You're
Yeah.
always into something. What's your magic with
Well,
do
one,
you create
everybody,
time?
everybody thinks I work so hard. How do you find time for this stuff? They don't realize that, what I do doesn't take a lot of time. I
Sure.
have time for stuff. But I think I found the solution to time hidden in the concept of doing what you have to do first.
What you have to do.
Then do what you should be doing next.
Yeah.
Then you'll have all the time in the world to do what you want to do.
Nice.
If you walk into a room, and you've walked into a lot of rooms
Yeah.
with audiences, business engagements
Yeah.
and stuff, if you said, today we're going to talk about time management, people are just gonna, they're gone.
Sure.
Physically, mentally,
Sure.
whatever, they don't wanna hear it. I've heard it all before, I went to a class, I got the book. But if they applied it, they wouldn't be having to listen to it again, you know? They didn't
Yeah.
apply it. And I think when you say time management, people just say, oh, I don't wanna do this again.
Sure.
But yet it's the national excuse.
Yeah.
We have a national anthem, we have a national bird, we have a national excuse.
Yeah.
The national excuse is I don't have time.
Yeah.
But they're not doing anything to stop it. And I think I did stumble across the solution, but it's hard to make a talk out of because it's only 8 seconds.
Sure.
Do what you have to do first, then do what you should be doing,
Yeah.
and watch what happens to your time.
Nice.
And I had one guy call me up, he says, you know, I heard you say that, you don't know me, but blah, 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 can I buy you lunch? I want to talk more about this, because
Yeah.
I think it'll work.
Yeah.
I'm seeing something here, I think
Sure.
there's something there, and I said, there is something there.
Yeah.
So we met for lunch, and I said, is today one of the days you wanted to practice it? And he said, yeah, it's been every day for a couple weeks. And I said, what'd you do this morning? He says, when I woke up, I took a shower. And I said, stop right there. You opened your eyes, and water just flowed out of your ceiling, huh? What happened in between?
Hmm.
And I don't need any personal details, you know?
Yeah.
But he says, oh, well, you know what? Actually, I went on and I made coffee, and I did this. And he started listing things he did before he took a shower.
Yeah.
And I said, all those things were, you know, basic routine, but think about what just happened. You first said, I got up and took a shower. Now you found 15 things in between. Look at all the things in your day that went
Yeah.
on in between. Checking Facebook, doing this, doing that. And all of the things, thousands of things we do all day long
Sure.
that we didn't have to do.
Yeah.
And there's things we should have been doing that didn't get done either.
Sure.
But we did a lot of things we wanted
Yeah.
to do. I wanted to go to lunch with my friend. I didn't have to.
Yeah.
I had to get that thing done at the tax office. Now I got a fee for it.
Yeah.
I had to do that, or I should have been doing that. If
Yeah.
we categorize the order of what we need to do first,
Yeah.
and when I do this with kids, I have everyone hold their breath. Not for long, because you don't want to get in trouble.
Sure.
10 seconds. Okay, everybody breathe. Why'd you breathe? Because we had to. There's things you have to do. You know what you have to do.
Yeah.
And then there's things that you should be doing.
Yeah.
You should be studying, you should be doing this, you should be doing your homework. And then there's things that you want to do. And if you do them in that order, you'll magically, time will just start pouring.
Yes.
It works every
Yeah.
time. With my working schedule, I do have more time than most have for stuff I want to do, but when I get into a project, I get hardcore into that need, should, want
Sure.
program, because that's the only way that project's going to get done.
Yeah.
If I don't bring that with me, it's almost like you left home without your tools.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to have that with you, or the project's not going to get done, because my habit is the same as everyone else's.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like doing this now, and I'll
Yeah.
go do it. If I bring that habit into my project, the project won't get done.
Yeah.
So whenever I go to work on something, do what you need to do,
Sure.
and what you should have been doing. Then you realize I got all the time in the world to do what I want to do now.
Sure.
And it works. It's
Yeah.
you got it. We talked earlier about we all have habits, and the older you get, the
Yeah.
more you've got, the
Yeah.
harder it is. So that might not be workable for
Sure.
some people because they're so used to doing other things. Really hard to break habits,
Yeah.
but you can break them.
Yeah.
And I think that's the secret to time.
To be able to do that in that order. Yeah.
If you do it in that order and take it seriously and apply it,
Yeah.
and watch yourself, it could take months to break the habits
Sure.
and get into the habit. You don't have to do it all the time. Maybe just do it when something's important. Today's a big day. I got to do what's important because tomorrow Ron invited me to Costa Rica
Yeah.
for the week, and it's an all-paid expense trip.
Sure.
If I could get this done today, if I can't, I can't
It's
go.
a discipline. Yeah.
So now all of a sudden you're doing what you need to do because I
Yeah.
want to go. You got to
Sure.
give yourself a reason to
Sure.
stick to it, and all of a sudden, hey, you know what? I can go now.
Yeah.
Look, I got this done. If I spend the day doing what I wanted to do, I can't go.
Can't go. Sure.
People say, oh, I couldn't go. Yes, you could have. Find a way to make it work.
Yeah.
And I think doing what you need to do first, and that's, you know, with our distractions today, with the internet and all the stuff we're doing, you wouldn't believe how sidetracked people are. You didn't have to Google that. You could have been doing something else.
Sure.
Do it later.
Yeah.
So doing what you need to do first.
Yeah.
The rest, I think, will fall into place for most people.